have some really challenging decisions to make about how to best educate your children. But no matter what choice you make, this library, this whole educational service here is still going to be a benefit to you, because our goal is to help you do what you're doing. Our goal is to help your kids just capture at a deep, deep, deep level that which is important. Say, for example, that your child is just starting out with negative numbers. And I've had this exact thing happen, so that's why this example popped to mind. A parent was working through the concept of negative numbers with a child, and it's an abstraction. Let's be honest, you can't count -7. You can count 7, but not -7. So they were really struggling with that. And so they happened to mention it to me. Parents, please, 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 please talk to me when you're here. Tell me where you're traveling, what the kids are wondering about, and maybe a concept that's coming hard for them, because there's going to be a living book for that. So when she told me that they were struggling to teach negative numbers in their regular math textbook, I said, great, then let's get him into this book right here. Zero is not nothing. And it talks about the concept of zero. And there's another one in that series. It's called Less. I think I have it somewhere on the table, but don't see it at the moment. It's called Less Than Nothing is Really Something. And this talks about the concept of negative numbers. It took her about 15 minutes to read through the book. And guess what? He got the concept of negative numbers in one setting. So because living books, these types of books, are very narrative in their flow, very connected, they're not partitioned, and because they reach to a deeper place in the reader, they can sometimes bypass even mental struggles or mental blocks, and they can just sink a knowing deep inside of us. Remember, our goal when we're learning is not to have memorized factoids. It's to know something deeply, to care about it deeply, to have built a relationship with it deeply, and then to become a person who grows out of all those things. So whatever the topic is that your kids are covering, no matter where they're learning, there is a living book that can support that. For example, this is an introduction to understanding algebra, but at the simplest level, using jelly beans. When I started algebra, nobody kind of gave me a warm up as to the concepts. I was just shown to page 1 of that textbook, but there will be living books that will help you start that. And as I mentioned before, like, this is a novel set in Saxon England of all times. So if your student has that in their history class at school and it just seems a little bit remote to them and, just kind of meaningless and abstract, give them a book where they meet a young woman who lived in this time period, and they'll really get a sense for what it's like. And I think I've mentioned this example already a couple of times, but before you ever start learning geometry, for example, get your child into this book. One of the first things they'll do is meet Thales of Miletus. Do you happen to know him at all? When he was a young man, he did what was already popular at that time, and that he went to go visit the pyramids in Egypt. And when he got there, they already had tour guides there. And so he asked the question, how tall is the pyramid? And they said, well, how could we possibly know that? Nobody can drop a plumb line from the top of a pyramid. And being that he was an ancient Greek, he thought there has to be a way to figure out how tall something is from what we can know. When he got back home to Greece, he started noticing the length of shadows in relationship to the height of columns. And he realized that because he could measure this column and compare the measurement of the shadow, that he could use this relationship between the vertical and the horizontal to figure out the height of something. Guess what? That became the basis of geometry. And that is how he eventually did figure the height of the pyramids. And so you see him doing that right here. And in the very next chapter, we're going to meet a man named Pythagoras. And guess what? He's going to end up coming with what we all had to memorize in geometry class, the Pythagorean theorem. But in this book, he becomes a person. He is a person, and he has to solve a real problem. So when you can meet the person and when you can see the real need, then the proofs that you have to do in the geometry book make so much more sense. So whatever educational methodology you're using, remember that we're here to help you and your children have the most positive experience, and they will find out that actually every subject is fascinating if we can just get inside of it and see it at its heart level.